Big shout out to all our sponsors who sponsor the fanzine, the website, and indeed the podcast. And this episode of the podcast is kindly sponsored by Rosie McGuire's Bar and Restaurant. And a big venue it is too. I had a great night in it in September when they had a load of Celtic players over. It's the home of Era Gabra, Belfast in Spain. And this month they have a very special event. From Friday the 24th to Sunday the 23rd of November, they host Tradfest 2025, where trad musicians from all over Ireland will be descending on the bar for a weekend of traditional tunes, dancing, and some song. So once again, a big shout out to Rose McGuire's for the kind sponsorship. And if you would like to sponsor an episode of the podcast, the fanzine, or indeed place an advert on our website, please contact us at info@celticfanzine.com. You can email us at info@celticfanzine.com. And you can also contact us through all our social media channels. Enjoy the podcast. Michael Pringle, back on the Celtic Soul Podcast. This is getting a regular as we get more regular on the podcast. Folks, if you're tuning in for the first time on YouTube, please hit that subscribe button. You'll get all the information about us up there at celticfanzine.com. And we all started this journey 24 years ago when we started the fanzine, more than 90 minutes. And Michael was a big part of that over the years, and we're happy to say that he's going to be back in the next issue, and I'm not putting him under any pressure now that he is semi-retired. Michael, a Glasgow journalist and a Celtic fan, and a great friend. Michael, we've both been around the block when it comes to going to see Celtic in Europe. And we would have had many a trip with Martin O'Neill, some memorable ones, some forgettable ones. But Martin in Midtjylland, Denmark, with the team on Thursday. A tough game lies ahead. They've won all their games. And Martin O'Neill commented in a recent interview how physical a team they are, and they were just too physical for Nottingham Forest, a game he watched. Thoughts?
Aye, well, we've seen earlier in the season as well against Scottish opposition. I mean, Hibs ran them really close. I watched both legs of that game, and I thought Hibs were unfortunate. So it just goes to show what a performance the Edinburgh side put in, because there's no doubt that they look like a really good side. Midtjylland have been around the block a few times, so to speak, as well over the last couple. They seem to be getting stronger every season in Europe. No, it once was a game that we would have probably took for granted that we would win, but I'm not so sure now, although the last week or so has been really positive, so I would expect us to have a right good go at it and try and get the 3 points. Whether that comes to fruition or not is another matter, but I'm certainly a bit more confident that we can take something for the game than I was this time last week. And obviously I've been all over the place with Martin O'Neill in the past. Didn't really expect to be seeing him leading the team into Europe at this stage of his career, shall we say. But I think he's got with Maloney and Fotheringham that there. I think I thought on Sunday there it was quite obvious how involved Maloney is and what the team does on the park. I know that Martin O'Neill's a figurehead, but it seems to be that Maloney might well be the master tactician at this stage, no. But we'll probably see how that goes. I might be a bit premature with the master tactician. We'll see how tomorrow night pans out first. But I'm fairly confident that we can take something. If no win, then maybe get another draw.
Yeah, it would be. I suppose for confidence as well. If we didn't take a spanking and we got a point, or snuck a win, it'd be absolutely brilliant. Yeah. After the couple of weeks we've had, what week it's had, Michael. I think yesterday was the first day that we could catch a breath.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, there was so much incident in Sunday's game. And as usual, our city neighbours are crying over what isn't even spilt milk. No, some of the decisions that went against us on Sunday were terrible. No, terrible. I mean, Nick Walsh, I usually think is quite a good referee, if I can call it quite good. And in relative terms, I think he's usually quite fair, but I don't know what he was doing on Sunday. Some of the things he let go, and there's been little mention of challenge on Hatate in the box, which could have well merited a penalty kick. It was sort of glossed over. There was no replay shown on TV after it. I think when you look at it again, it's a penalty, but there's been no scrutiny at it. It seems to be only the decisions against the other side that seem to be scrutinised, and not the decisions against us.
Yeah, and no better club than the old Southco to come out with a statement.
It was that time of day again, I think. No, it just seems every time they get beaten, they get a statement. I mean, they obviously have got concerns with the refereeing, but if they've got concerns, what about the rest of us? You know what I mean? It's I mean, some of the decisions were just abysmal, and it wasn't even. I always say it's not generally a lot of the time after games, people reflect and go, "Oh, the ref had a good game. He got all the big decisions right." For me, it's the small decisions that can make a big difference. Breaking up the play and stuff. I mean, it was 3 or 4 times when we took an early free kick to release players into space, and he pulled it back. Even we took an early throw at one point, and he pulled it back for a mysterious VAR intervention, which didn't happen. His decisions certainly didn't favour us. I mean, you can comb over the trusty one. Was the trusty one? Did it merit a red card? Could have. It would have been very, very harsh, I think, if he'd been given a red for that. The Cornelius challenge on Kenny, for me, was a red card, regardless if he's in low. It's with excessive force and studs first. You know what I mean? And he's caught him on his standing leg.
Yeah, I've seen the images of that.
And then caught him on the right leg after it. Aye. So I just don't know. I don't get what they're complaining about. The red card would have made a difference. They should have been down to 10 before that. The goal for me isn't the offside. I've seen that in a straight line, and then I know the VAR cameras are positioned at certain points within the stadium, but if you move that 100th of a second or one frame, the ball will still be at Nygren's. Nygren will still be touching the ball. But the position they've used and the frame they've used favoured the offside decision. But I've watched it several times, and for me, it's just no offside. It's no. But I think they've used it. They'll be poured over it and microscopically adjusted the frames to suit. I know it sounds a bit bizarre, but if you see it in a straight line for the Premier Sports camera, he's onside. So, and they show you if you're behind, and Nygren's body position is slightly different. So I don't know what they're crying about, because I think they got away with a couple of huge decisions in the game, and they're crying about Ralston should be a second yellow. Ralston's arms are in a natural. In fact, they're probably in an unnatural position, given that if you're falling, you would normally put your arms down. But he does have them tucked in. That was harsh and extreme, and it was interesting to see. There was a couple of similar-ish incidents last night in Europe that weren't given as penalty kicks. So that sort of tears a hole in the logic that's been applied to the penalty decision against Ralston. But it was always likely to happen when you're 1-0 up. I said during the game, we need to get a second here. If we don't, there's always the danger. I mean, we've seen it in the cup final against Aberdeen, and it was that same sort of scenario where they got something late on. Aberdeen got it with a bit of luck. Schmeichel spoke the ball. I think they got it with a bit of luck there on Sunday as well with the refereeing decision. I can see why VAR didn't intervene, because it's not that obvious. It hits his arm. Would he have changed his mind if he went to look at it again on it? I'm not really that sure. He took a while, Nick Walsh, to actually give a decision. He thought about it, I think, before he took a couple of seconds and then blew. But for me, it wasn't a penalty. But I've got green tinted specs, so I'm always likely to say that. I'm sure everybody else at the other persuasion will say definitely it was a Stonewall penalty. So, but we got through it in the end anyway. I thought our second half performance sort of we reverted to type a wee bit to the way we played under Rodgers. It was a bit slow and lethargic. and we let them back into it. I don't know if that was maybe because of the direction the players have received at half time, that maybe Neil or Maloney have said, look, we don't need to go chasing the game now. So whereas first half we were brilliant, we closed them down tremendously well, won a lot of breaks of the ball high up the park. If we just continued in that vein, I think we would have won it more convincingly. Although in the end we did win it convincingly, but aye.
Yeah, I thought we started off really well, Michael. Yeah, the Nygren goal, for me, it's a goal. But then again, as you say, green tinted specs. But it's the slightest of it is off. It's very slight. Yeah, penalty was ridiculous. But we were so much in control, and when the red card came, we were dominating the game. I was so impressed the way we started, how direct we were, and you know, the atmosphere in the stadium without the ultras was good. The sing song, although some of the songs I hadn't heard in a while, and then yeah, we did. I thought we did kind of switch off, which gave the Rangers fans got a couple. They got up then because they got a couple of corners. They got the penalty, which Michael goes the right way. He's not too far away, but it is a good penalty. And then, but then like you're on tender hooks. But then when we went into extra time, we took control again, and it was one way traffic then really. And I just, it was just a wonderful, wonderful. Coming near the end of the game as well, when the stadium was fully rocking. Martin O'Neill gives a little salute at the end of the game, and I suppose he's rolling back the years, but. With the young lad coming on, who wasn't in Rodgers' plans, he's grabbed the headlines. Callum, what's the second name? Callum
Osmond. Just call him Jimmy or Donny.
That's me. My mind's gone again. But I thought it maybe took the gloss off one of a fellow Irishman in Johnny Kenny. I think Johnny's had a great week.
Fantastic week. I mean, he came in for a bit of criticism, people saying he's not good enough and stuff, but it just shows you that he's got something in his locker. He's got a nose for goal. Couple of great finishes the previous game, and then that was a fantastic header. It's not like us to score direct for, well, no direct for corners, but for set pieces like that. It's quite a rare occurrence, so it was good to see that. Good to see that, especially Rangers are physically quite good when it comes to set pieces. You know what I mean? So, I thought it was a good goal.
Great goal. But I think when Engels is in form, and he's obviously O'Neill and Maloney fancy him ahead of Hatate, but I think when he's in form, his delivery from set pieces and corners is really, really good.
Yeah, I thought Engels did a fantastic game. The amount of running he put in was incredible. All right, he's not scoring goals and stuff, which is maybe what a lot of people look at him and go, oh, he came in after O'Reilly, and O'Reilly was a different style of player. And I think Engels has been played out of position a lot, to be fair. He's just been slotted in wherever. I just think the system didn't suit him previously under Rodgers. But I thought he was fantastic. His delivery, his quality is no doubt. It's just how you get him playing, how you get the best out of him, and I think we definitely got that on Sunday. Maybe one of his best games in a Celtic shirt. He's not perfect by any chance. He had a couple of corners late on in the game that were overhit, but when I seen that, I just thought, how does somebody not just stay at the back post? Because he took a couple long before that, and there was somebody at the back post to try and header them back across, but the last couple, everybody seemed to get drawn towards the front post and the centre of the goal. No, but I thought he was brilliant. And to be fair, Hatate had an impact when he came on as well. I thought he looked sharper. His passing was good. No, Hatate can give you something that none of the other players can. You can see a passing. Some of the reverse passes and stuff he's got are brilliant. But this season he's just been really poor. I think. No, he's just giving the ball away. I was going to say really inconsistent, but he's been consistently poor. So I thought he gave us something as well when he came on. But the boy Osmond was great. He just gave you that. He's a real live wire looking, and it gives you something that we've not had for a while a bit of pace up front, and I think that maybe Rodgers' system wouldn't have fitted. He wouldn't have fitted into Rodgers' system either, because it's so slow. The build-up is so slow, and it's this pass possession, trying to pick a hole and pack defences. Whereas you've seen it there on Sunday. We got the ball forward quickly a couple of times, and Osmond was right on the shoulder of the defenders, and probably Kilneely should have probably been sent off as well for hauling him down at the halfway line for a second yellow. But play on. Thanks, Mr. Walsh. Play on. I think he was frightened to send another one off.
Yeah, and it quite possibly so. Hatate, shocker against Hearts, and yeah, he comes back in. He loses his place, and rightly so. He comes back in, but he does. You know, I kind of when I see him coming off the bench, I had visions of when Lubo used to come off the bench, because he has that. He has that, as you say. He can pick a pass, and when he's on his game, he is a quality player. You know, I'm not putting him in the category of Lubo, but it just reminded me when he came off the bench, and Luke Cowan, I thought O'Neill was brilliant when he was asked about him in the post-match interviews, just to keep him grounded. He said, he'll be all right when he'll be a good footballer when he lets out to play centre forward. Obviously, he was doing a lot of running, chasing, and everything. But the energy a young player like that brings, and I just seen a short interview with him after the game. Only saw it yesterday actually, and it was as if he was in shock that a week ago he was in the B team, and now he's the hero of Hampden, hero of all Celtic fans in the pub that night. So yeah, it's been a really, really mad week, and yesterday was the first time that I went. The only thing, like when you flick through the Celtic news, the only thing yesterday was the mass was on Monday night, the annual mass for the club, and we're getting linked with a couple of managers, but there was that calmness yesterday, and I'm sure it was the same for the players and the manager, that they just take a deep breath before they go again in Europe. But yesterday, Michael, I got an order in for back issues.
Yeah.
So I was flicking through. And normally when I get an order in for back issues, it's one that's within the last 12 months. And occasionally then you'll get a bulk order from maybe a collector or someone who trades fanzines and programs. But I got an order in anyway, 6 fanzines. And I was going through the back issues, which was the old A4 issues before we reverted back to A5. And I had them all laid out, and I'm picking the ones that they ordered for the order. And I come across one, and one headline sticks out. Now I think we go back to about issue 60, and before that it is gone now. And actually Robbie Keane was on the cover of issue 60. And and then it goes through, it goes through the 60s, the 70s, the 80s, the 90s, and into, there's a couple of back issues of the A4 early ones in the 100s. And I came across this copy here. This copy is from 11 years ago. It's when Ronnie Delia had come in. And the headlines are, supporters are being shortchanged and many are now voting with their fee. And if you remember, back then, the top of the Lisbon Lions stand was closed. Right? But a quick through. Now, Michael, that headline comes from an article you wrote. And we spoke last week about how we seem to be on a cycle and things repeat themselves. But when I flick through the issue, Ronnie Delia is our new manager, and it is like stepping back in time. The convention that summer was in New Orleans in the States, and it's back there this summer. Giorgio Samaras had left the club. Fraser Forster had left the club. John Fallon, Lord of Mercy on him, had his column in it. There's a good few articles on Neil Lennon because he's left the club. And at that time, I think if you remember, Lennon had said he'd taken the club as far as he could. If I'm correct in that. Our away days took us to Warsaw, where we were hammered. St. Pauli for a friendly. And there's since been a fallout between Glasgow St. Pauli and Germany. Germany St. Pauli. I'm thinking through, there's a couple, John Fallon, as I said, Scott had wrote the away days, so he was in Warsaw, and you both of you were in Iceland. I wasn't in Iceland, and Scotty's headlines was Polaxed in Warsaw. What a headline!
4-1, wasn't it?
David Potter, as always, was in with some historical pieces and a piece on our new assistant manager, John Collins. So so rest in peace to Scotty, David Potter, and John Fallon, who we've lost in recent years. Even I look at some of the advertisers, the Spirit, which is a pub gone now, which was down beside the toll booth,
Yeah.
So a lot has changed, but a lot has stayed the same, Michael. And your article, supporters are being shortchanged, and many are voting with their feet. Now, the fans are not voting with their feet at the moment, Michael. But if I look at this, and it's a long article, I read it yesterday, and it brought back. It could have been wrote this summer.
Aye, it's like rinse and repeat in a lot of respects with the Celtic board. I was thinking back fairly recently as well to when we played Manchester United in the Champions League, and the club, for whatever reason, decided they would run their own buses and kept back a huge swathe of tickets for Old Trafford, and you could only purchase them through them, regardless of your record, travelling to European away games. And I was thinking back about it because of the cup final and the amount of corporate sort of tickets where you get an ordinary seat in the East Stand at Hampden if you pay £300 for it for the meal and bus that goes along with it. So the board at times say that they'll take things on board and we'll have better communication with fans and stuff. And here we are over a decade, and it's probably just the same stuff getting regurgitated. There is a rinse and repeat element to everything that comes. It's almost like cyclical. There needs to be some sort of change. There needs to be at the very minimum, they need to start communicating with the supporters better, and stop treating us just as a commodity. Because I know there's no empty seats just now, but that could so easily turn quickly. I mean, I know there's probably less chance of empty seats now because there is a demand for people. There's people that can't get to the football. It's getting harder and harder for people to get to the football for one reason or other. Cost is I mean, we had the 20s plenty thing a couple of years ago, and now we're up to 25 for away fans. But the way the pricing goes, we've got a sort of average of 30 odd quid for a season ticket per game. So how can they justify putting it down to £25 for away fans? But away fans are season ticket holders, so they're paying for their own club's season ticket. So I don't think it would be beyond the realms of possibility for clubs to get their heads together and go, look, just a flat £25 across the board for away fans. You've got 33, 35, 36, 50 quid for away games. It all mounts up, and it's a really hard time for a lot of people. And if you've got a couple of kids, taking them to the game now is an extortionate layout. Sorry, you've disappeared.
Sorry, Michael.
Was I boring you that much?
No, I apologise. That's why I went. Keep going. And I've got a red head now because I bent down and got up too quick. I had to plug something in, and we were losing charge on one of the pieces here. So apologies. Sorry, Michael. Go ahead with the ticket pricing.
I think there could be. I think there could be more done to sort of help supporters in a time that's. I mean, we've had the cost of living crisis, and it's almost as if that's not mentioned anymore. We've got the Chancellor here looks as if she's going to put another 2% on income tax. So things are getting worse for people, not any better. I just think there needs to be more transparency on a lot of things within the club. But I think shuffling the deck chairs, they might get away with it just now. that's the thing. They might get away with it because they've kicked it into the long grass. Even a couple of good results, and it gets kicked into the long grass for a bit. But I don't think it will this time. And it was quite noticeable as well. You're talking about no ultras there. The Rangers ultras were there, so that shows you the difference in the way the clubs treat their ultras. I mean, they've got a goal end now, and as have most of the ultras groups at the other clubs. Um, I thought that the semi final the day before, Motherwell, St Mirren and Motherwell, both sets of ultras pushed the ball out and had good tifo displays and stuff, and it looked great for a stadium that was less than half full. On the TV, it looked decent because of where they had positioned the supporters and kept it. But I just think that the ultras are an asset. Whether you like them or no, is another thing. You know what I mean? That's just a generational thing for a lot of people. I think about how the atmosphere was fantastic in the jungle and stuff, and it's a lot of nonsense. It's like the game on Sunday was an easy one to get off for atmosphere wise. That atmosphere should always take care of itself. That'll be the bread and butter games when we're facing Dundee at home and stuff like that. How will the atmosphere be then without them? So we should be doing our best as a club to make it the atmosphere as good as we possibly can. I touched on it the last time I spoke about expanding the standing section and stuff. I just don't see how that can't be done. Other than for financial reasons, there's no way it shouldn't be looked at. I know the club are saying that they're looking at it now after the results of the survey, but there needs to be more for them. It was good to see the new banners around the stadium going up with the Celtic legends and stuff, but that was a long time in coming. The stadium's been lying with parts of these banners missing since the start of the season. So we just need to be a bit more proactive, I think. I think as a club generally, and if they're going to continue with the same board members, then they at least need to be accountable, transparent about what they're doing, and more proactive in what we're doing instead of just waiting to they're forced into it. So that's my feelings on it.
Yeah, well, in the words of Oasis, don't look back in anger, Michael. But there's a couple of paragraphs here from when I read earlier on that stood out. You know, here's one. When we went 2 down in the second half, chance rose from a sizable majority. Now, this is the Warsaw game in Murrayfield.
Right, okay.
When we went 2 down in the second half, chance rose from a sizable majority of those within the stadium. Those chants weren't aimed at the new manager or the players, as they often are in these types of scenarios. They were aimed squarely at the chief executive. Lowell, get the fuck. The supporters who paid a hard-earned cash to travel and watch the team realised that the jam had been spread too thin, one time too many. And then the lack of investment has come back with a vengeance to bite us on the behind. As one supporter named me said, Lowell has been drinking out of a magnum of champagne for years and keeps topping it up with Lambrusco. It seems a fair assessment to me. And then there's just, if we go over here now, there's something on safe standing. That's been introduced. Things off the park don't seem to have improved much, despite the club's propaganda and PR drive being slung into top gear in recent months in a bid to have as many season tickets holders as possible renew without any significant investment in the playing staff. And that would prove that season that but a big thing as well then was that there was no Rangers in the league. And but you like it or not, some Celtic fans, that's the reason they buy a season book, because it is such a big game, and you're seeing that on Sunday. You know, when you beat Rangers or their Rangers, it's euphoria. It's incredible. I'm going to just try and pick one more passage, Michael, from this. There's another one I saw. Yeah. Peter Lawwell broke from cover following the debacle against Maribor. So if people remember, we went out of the Champions League to Warsaw, Legia Warsaw. They'd hammered us in both games. I think it was 9-1 in aggregate. They had played a player that wasn't registered. Am I right?
That's right. Yep. We got a jail card and
then we got we got Maribor from Slovenia or Slovakia.
Slovenia.
Yeah. So we got Maribor. We had we took a lead. We brought back a one goal lead from the away game, and then on a Dawa, I remember that night in Celtic Park. It was terrible. There was then protests after the game at the front of the stadium. We now see protests at the front of the game. After going out of the Champions League to a team we should be beating, after having money in the bank and not reinvestment. But I'll just read this piece to you, Michael. Peter Lawwell broke from cover following the debacle against Maribor to tell the media via a cringeworthy interview with Celtic TV how much he was missing the old club from the south side, and the liquidation had cost us more than 10 million a season. That is despite the fact that Celtic's accounts show since 2011 the money coming in has increased thanks principally to our European runs. That's the main problem with business operated as PLCs. It's not good enough to make a profit or to be in profit every year. You have to make more profit. The cliche-filled interview didn't wash with a considerable number of our supporters who consider it patronising. Only time will tell if Peter has spun the roulette wheel too many times in his quest to keep us out of the red and in the black. He thinks that the policies employed under his watch have been clever, but could have been cleverer, in my opinion. Our supporters are being shortchanged, and many are now voting with their feet. Over to you, Peter. So I couldn't believe, Michael, when I was reading, and you could have wrote that this month.
You could have, as I say, it's rinse and repeat in a lot of respects. It's almost everything we seem to do is reactive rather than proactive. It was as if every season we would wait. We wouldn't buy the players that were needed to ensure that we get into the Champions League, and it's been the same again this season. Having said that, Rodgers is far from blameless, because the players he had, quite clearly, it's been shown in the last week that the players he had should have been good enough to carry us through against Cara. And I think, for me, that was the worst result in our history. I mean, you can take all the 7-0s and 7-1s and 6-1s that have been 5-0s that we've been beat by, but each time we were beat with the exclusion of Neuchâtel's and Max, every time we've been beat heavily in Europe, it's been by a sort of major European force. Cara Almaty are a mid-table Scottish Premiership team at best, I think, and their results in Europe so far have showed that. For me, that was the worst result in our history, worse than Red Imps, etc. And it's down to a lack of planning again, a lack of forethought for the board, and obviously it was the blame ultimately fell at the manager's feet for not getting a tune out of the players that they actually had. But it's rinse and repeat. Just wait until, I mean, we had another debacle when we went to Athens where Boyata refused to play. Every year it seemed as if we were going in missing a centre back, a key player, normally a centre back. And if you look at the times we've had to qualify for the Champions League, we've not come up against great shakes and any great shakes in the qualifiers or the playoffs, but we've still let ourselves down badly, and that's down to bad planning. That's nothing else. I mean, it's down to bad planning, because you could play these teams 4 or 5 months later and you would beat them at the park. But it's rinse and repeat. It's almost like we'll sign someone once we've got that money in, but then if you don't get that money, I mean, Law there talking about we lost 10 million for Rangers being out of the league. If we had made the Champions League that season, 10 million wouldn't have been, there would have been no worry, you know what I mean? But they failed to invest under Ronnie Delia. He was really shortchanged, as well as the fans, because if he'd been given the funding that the other managers had been given, then I dare say he could have made a better shot at it than he actually did. We lost out to teams in the Europa League. If it was a Europa League then, well, it would have been the UEFA Cup. We lost to average teams then as well, you know. It's just they're always trying to pull the wool over our eyes when it comes to finances, yeah. And with the AGM might be interesting this year, depending on how things work out. But I think they bought themselves some time with the results, and we bring in a Neil back. There's almost a nostalgia about Martin O'Neill being back in. So they might have. It's been a shrewd move by Desmond, to be fair. I mean, when I first heard the announcement, I thought, oh, what year is this? Oh, Martin O'Neill and Sean Maloney. I thought I'd travel back in time again, but it looks as if it's going to work. But I mean, you're only as good as your last game, so we'll see how tomorrow night goes in Denmark.
Yeah,
and then
Michael, when I look back at that season, I look at some of the players. Obviously, George Samras was a striker who probably played, gave Lennon some. Remember, we went to Ibrox and he got two, and he was out of the team. He comes back in. He always seemed to step up for Lennon. Callum McGregor wasn't that team back then. He's still there. He's still doing the business. A brilliant goal on Sunday. Hopefully he can lead us now. As you say, in Denmark, we can get a positive result. But we also sold Fraser Forster. We cashed in on Fraser Forster that year. Did he... Yeah, we sold him and we brought in Craig Gordon on a pay-as-you-play, wasn't it? So that was a good bit of business. He turned out to be a decent keeper for us.
Well, he cost us a lot in Europe, to be fair. Some of the errors that Craig Gordon made were horrendous, man, I thought, in Europe. He's a good shot stopper. I'm not his biggest fan, to be honest. I just thought he would have never survived under Ange. Never, because of I remember one game in Amsterdam when we were leading, and we went down to 10, I'm sure, but instead he just kept kicking the ball along. And I thought, just giving them possession back, and inevitably they scored. But I remember some real howlers for him coming out against, I think it was Juventus as well, come out, and then over in was it Beersheba? Another howler. I had a few howlers in European games. Craig Gordon, I wasn't his biggest fan, to be honest. I don't put him down as a great keeper. A good keeper, aye, but great keeper, not for me, man.
And another player we had back then was a young player, and it was a Neil Lennon signing. Virgil van Dijk was back when you wrote that article. Virgil he was another player that was cashed in on, and
Yeah.
he's still he's playing at the top now. He played for Liverpool against Real Madrid last night.
Always good for a goal.
Yeah, I was kind of, and like we players like Stokes was in the team. When I look back, when I think back then, but yeah, memory lane. I've had some nightmares with O'Neill in Europe, but I've also had some great nights as well, especially on that run to Seville in the UEFA Cup, which is the cup we're in now, renamed and rebranded.
Yeah.
But hopefully, just hopefully, it's one of those famous away days and not one of the regular, Michael, because I remember you saying to me one day, all I'd like to bring back from Europe is a win.
Well, that's, for years when it was straight knockout competitions, it wasn't a problem getting away to Europe because it was normally only one game a season, though. And then you were out again. But that didn't bother. We just wanted a goal. That was all we were looking for years, no. A goal would do, an away goal. So.
Yeah. It was. But you know what? We made some great friends on those trips, and we had some great times. And generally, Michael, when I was with you, I didn't get pissed because you don't drink, and I had some good coffees and I had some nice meals. So sometimes I would go looking for you because you kept me on the straight and narrow, and I thank you for that.
Make sure you caught your plane in time.
Yeah, well, I missed a few. The most recent was in Transylvania when we played Cluj at Christmas. And And that flight took me to Brussels for a whole. I had to spend the day there, and I flew home that evening. Missed me gig, and yeah, that was a long day. But I haven't missed one since. So thankfully, I've also missed them from Glasgow, but that's generally because the pad is just too good. It's not too bad because you can jump. If you can't get a flight, you can jump on a boat. But you can jump on the boat, but when you're in Transylvania and it's a couple of days before Christmas, you kind of have to get home. Michael, thanks a million for chatting to me. It's great. It's great to have the podcast back on a regular basis. Thanks to everyone who's been listening and leaving comments. And our following is now growing, Michael. So the old Celtic dads have still a couple of listeners out there.
The granddads.
The granddads, yeah. Yeah, thanks a million, Michael, and we'll talk soon.